Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Nozick. It is my honor to introduce today's commencement speaker, Mr. Larry Kramer, the president of the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Before joining the foundation, Mr. Kramer served from 2004 to 2012 as Richard E. Lang Professor of Law and Dean of Stanford Law School. During his tenure, he spearheaded significant educational reforms, such as pioneering a new model of multidisciplinary legal studies and developing the International Law Program. Some of his many scholarly interests include American legal history, constitutional law, and federalism. Prior to Stanford, Mr. Kramer served as a professor of law at the University of Chicago, the University of Michigan, and New York University School of Law. He also earned his A.B. from Brown University and his J.D. from the University of Chicago Law School, both magna cum laude. Our class had the opportunity to meet Mr. Kramer when he visited Kehillah a few months ago, and we are so happy he is here today. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Larry Kramer to the stage.
So I have this whole speech written, but then they've already said almost all of the things I wanted to say. I'm going to say them anyway, so let me start. I wanted to say seniors. Seniors! I just wanted to see if it would work when I did it. I may drop that in occasionally in the middle of the speech for fun. So let's start by saying congratulations to the graduates of the Kehillah class of 2016. It's a real accomplishment that we celebrate here today with you. It's a genuine milestone. You are, after all, about to cross one of the most important thresholds of your life. It is weird to be looking at you while I'm talking to them. If becoming a bar bat mitzvah signifies readiness to assume the responsibilities of an adult in Jewish society, graduating high school marks something similar in civil and secular society. Your childhood is now formally and officially over. Right? So that's a meaningful step, and I hope you're proud. You should be. You worked hard to get here, both in and out of school, in your classes, in your other activities, in your personal relationships, and in your life generally. But you didn't do this alone. No one can, and no one does. You've had the support of parents and grandparents and brothers and sisters and friends and teachers and colleagues and coaches and more. They all played a role in getting you here. I should say that I was completely ignorant of this when I was your age. Not that I saw myself as self-made or anything like that, I just honestly didn't think about it. Then when I was graduating college, I saw a friend of mine, a child of immigrants and the first person in his family to go to college, taking photos with his extended family, a whole lot of whom had come. He took off his cap and gown, and one by one, each member of the family put them on. And they took a series of pictures of the whole family like that. Later, I asked him why, and he said to me that he wouldn't have made it here but for them. It was, he said, their graduation as much as his. And I thought to myself, what a beautiful idea. And I also thought, how selfish am I not even to have thought about it? So take a moment now, find your family or your friends out there in the crowd, although you probably can't see them with the lights, and tell them thanks. You can do that silently if you want, but do it, because it's their graduation too. I want you to especially think about your teachers and classmates and all the people who made your experience at Kehillah what it was. For most of you, this is the only high school you know, so it may be hard to appreciate what a remarkable place this is, although, from what I heard, perhaps you do. I've learned a lot about a lot of schools over the years and have been privileged to get to know Kehillah some. I've talked to students who attend, to parents whose children attend, to Rabbi Kleinberg, to members of the board I know, and to some of your teachers. It's a terrific school academically, of course, but what's special is how much more it is than that. I actually know a few places that work as hard to encourage and support students or that genuinely cares for and about them as much. Kehillah is, as actually you yourselves just said, not so much a school as it is a community. And that takes work, not just from your teachers, but from the school's board and administration, from your parents, from alumni. There is, in fact, nothing so important or difficult for learning as building and maintaining a strong community. And I mention this because I do want to urge you to remain part of it. Stay in touch with the school and with your classmates, participate and give back in whatever ways you can to ensure that the students who come after you have the same or even better opportunities than you did. Now, I sat long and hard trying to figure out what I could say to send you off that would be meaningful as you enter this next phase of your lives. You are, after all, part of the mystifying, enigmatic generation that has been named millennials, and that I keep reading is so perplexingly difficult from the rest of us, whereas I'm just an old baby boomer. What can someone from my generation possibly have to say that you'll find relevant and worth listening to? So I did what any good researcher would do and turned to Google for information. Okay, so that is one thing I want to tell you. Do not use Google for research. It's great for settling arguments around the dinner table or at a bar, but it's not someday when you do that. It's not a real research tool, and I didn't actually use it, and you shouldn't either, not for research. Anyway, one of the nice things about being president of a foundation is I called a person who does research for us and said, pull some articles for me. And I pulled some articles by teachers and psychologists and business consultants about your generation, looking for an answer to the question, who are these people anyway? Now, you might have heard all this, but I confess I was surprised. According to the experts, you are spoiled and entitled from having always been coddled. You're delicate, and you need to be sheltered and protected and nurtured a lot. You take forever to grow up, living with and off of your parents for longer than anyone else in human history. I take the laughter as like this may be right. You're impatient. One of your own in one of the studies put it, our generation wants what we want when we want it, which is now. And apparently you have the attention spans of a 5-year-old with ADHD. This is stuff. I didn't make this up. You live and you breathe technology. According to one study, 53% of millennials, when asked, said they would rather lose their sense of smell than their digital devices. Now, I should say when I read that, I thought, why would anyone ask about smell? In any event, I studied sensory perception when I was in college, and I suspect that anyone who said they would give up their sense of smell never took a course in it. Because if they had, I guarantee you the answer would be different. You can look that up on your phone with Google. I promise you'll change your mind. Not everything I read was negative. You are, I read, group-oriented, inclusive, and collaborative. You're ambitious and achievement-oriented and open to change. You're politically engaged, much more so than we were at your age. You are, however, an exceptionally stressed-out bunch. And for some reason, you don't like to buy cars or houses, even after you get married and have kids, which apparently you do later and less than earlier generations. Anyway, I finished all this research and I had two thoughts. The first was that, in truth, the descriptions don't really fit the students I've been privileged to teach over the years. Some of it rings true. There is often a sense of entitlement, though honestly I put that down to the fact that your generation has also had to work a lot harder than mine just to get to college. But lots of this reminded me of the song Kids from the musical Bye Bye Birdie, which actually I bet none of you have ever heard. But for the audience, which goes, why can't they be like we were, perfect in every way, which was of course written about my generation when we were your age, so I take it all with a grain of salt. Still, it led to a second thought, which was that perhaps I do have something that I want to say to you after all. And that, simply put, is this: ignore this research. Ignore the pundits and social commentators with their overbroad generalizations. Don't let others define you. Don't let them tell you who you are, and definitely don't let anyone slap a label and stick you into some predefined box, especially one that purports to describe a generation of millions. You are you, an individual. Be yourself, define yourself. That may in fact be your greatest challenge, but it's also your most important responsibility. Most of you are going off to college. Some I know are going to the IDF or planning a gap year or something like that, though I suspect most of you will end up in higher education soon enough. At least, I hope so. In any event, whatever you do next, you will be on your own and away from the milieu in which you grew up. It will, as one of the teachers suggested, likely throw you off, at least at first. But it will also open things up, more than you realize. Relationships are tricky things. They're a bit like habits. We fall into patterns in how we act with people, and we follow those patterns without thinking about it or even realizing it. Once set, moreover, those patterns, which really reflect the kind of person we've chosen to be, are enormously hard to change without a change of setting. I'm a very different person from the kid who graduated high school in 1976. Yet even now, when I go home and spend time with my family and high school friends, I find myself back in the same place, acting and feeling as I did then, having the same arguments, telling the same jokes, doing the same things, feeling the same ways. It's not bad, but it is striking. Being on your own in a new environment is a chance to reset and begin afresh. The next few years are transitional, a bridge to full independence. Soon, you'll choose careers, even you guys, begin families, and assume the full responsibilities of adulthood, but not right away. First, you have to get some experience being on your own, choosing among paths that are new, paths that, precisely because you are on your own, are more open than anything that's been available to you so far. Use this time to explore. Try on different identities. Decide who you want to be. Have fun with it, because the journey is every bit as important as the destination. But don't lose sight of how important this time can be in shaping the person you will be. These are choices you can make if you have the tenacity and the courage to do so. That last point is important. Don't be timid. You'll get lots of advice about what you should do, about which paths are best for you, and about what kind of life you should lead. And you should listen to what people say. People with experience actually do often know what they are talking about. Take it in and think about it. Learn what you need to know. But in the end, make your own decisions. Take chances. People like to talk about the recklessness of youth, but usually it's just the opposite. Young people actually tend to approach life by playing it safe, making choices that others have identified as best while striving above all to keep their options open. Resist that urge. You shouldn't be reckless or stupid, but you also shouldn't be faint-hearted. Make sure that your choices are your choices. Trust the foundations that have been laid here in your schools and in your families, but in the end, trust yourself. That's actually a daunting piece of advice, and it's one I haven't always followed myself, but I can say I have been sorry every time I have not. Not all my choices worked out. A few proved disastrous. But mistakes and disasters really are opportunities to learn and grow. And if you stick with it and don't lose heart, even bad choices will ultimately lead to something good. As important, they'll lead to something that feels like it's yours. I've been fortunate in my life. I've had the opportunity to do and accomplish things I'm proud of. But I can say without hesitation that the thing I am most proud of is that I took responsibility for the course my life has followed. Not that I did it alone. I had a ton of help. I had a supportive family and have had wonderful friends and mentors, often unlooked for. But ultimately, the choices I made were my own. And if there's one piece of advice I have to offer, it is to work for that. Recognize and be grateful for all the help that you've received and for all the help that you will receive. Recognize the many privileges you've had, privileges that have given you opportunities that most people will never have. But take ownership of your life and become the person you want to be. What I'm describing here is, in fact, a lifelong process. But it begins now because the field ahead will never again be this open, and because the way you begin will shape and influence how you tackle life's later challenges as well. To make the exploration worthwhile, to make it really count, you need to be honest. I don't mean honest with others. Of course, you should be honest with others. I mean something harder, which is that you must be honest with yourself. Challenging your own beliefs can be hard. Changing your mind is definitely hard, which is why people do it so seldom. But knowing when to change your mind, knowing when a cherished belief remains valid and when not, can be the hardest thing of all, especially if that belief is shared by your friends and allies and they expect you to stay with the program. I can't tell you how to make these decisions. All I can say is this: you must be relentlessly, and I do mean relentlessly, honest with yourself. Self-delusion is easy. We tell law students that a good advocate must first persuade him or herself. That can be difficult with a client whose case is weak, but it's something we do almost reflexively in our own lives. It is all too easy to convince yourself that what's comfortable is also what's best. Sometimes, moreover, what's comfortable will be what's best, and what you want to be true will be true. But the only way to know for sure is to listen to what experience and exploration tell you. And if, after you do that, there is a quiet, nagging voice in the back of your mind, and you'll know it when you hear it, listen. Be honest. Walk a few steps down the road in your mind and look back at yourself, and be sure that you still like the person you see. All this concerns your personal and private life, the choices you make about who you want to be and what you want to do. But as citizens in a democracy, you have a public life too. You have responsibilities that go with the privilege of living in a free society. And in this particular election season, more so perhaps than in any other time in my life, I think we need to say a few words about these. Do not worry. Also, all of you guys, don't worry. I'm not going to tell anybody who to support or how to vote, though I do want to say make sure you do vote. I want instead to speak about a particular quality of mind that is fundamental for citizens in a democratic society, a quality I'll call reasoned empathy. By reasoned empathy, I mean a habit of mind, which is something else we teach in law school because it is in fact central to being an effective lawyer. Namely, the ability to understand that when people disagree, there are actual arguments on both sides, and people on both sides genuinely believe their point of view to be reasonable and right. It is a mistake, one I urge you not to make, to assume that people who disagree with you really know that you are right and they are wrong, but have some evil or self-interested motive for pretending otherwise. On the contrary, they almost certainly find their positions authentic and convincing, and for reasons that, at least when they're shared by large numbers of people, probably have something to them, something you need to understand before you can be sure about your own position. I single out this quality of reasoned empathy because I think it has never been more important or more absent than today, and things are getting worse. We live in an age of ideology, a time when for too many of us, facts are determined and controlled by pre-existing ideological commitments rather than the reverse, and a genuine exchange of ideas has practically ceased. You see this all around you, in the politicization of every public issue and disagreement, in the way people dismiss evidence that conflicts with their preconceived beliefs by attributing views they don't like to corruption and corrupt motives. We see it in the public domain in the emergence and now dominance of media with overt political agendas and the growing audiences these media attract as people confine themselves to information sources that dependably tell them what they already want to hear. We see it in the increasing willingness of office holders and candidates for office to just flat out lie and to say that opponents are not just wrong, but dishonest or evil, which means their positions can be ignored and their people threatened and shut down. These developments matter because they undercut the fundamental precondition for democracy in any complex society, that it be a community of individuals who, because they inevitably will disagree on important matters, are willing to reconsider their stances and to compromise based on respectful discussion with those who believe differently. Compromise is not at odds with values, not in a democratic society. On the contrary, compromise is one of such a society's paramount values. It reflects respect for the integrity of others and recognition of the unavoidable need for flexibility and reconciliation of competing interests, ideas, beliefs, and commitments. I hope that's not too serious a subject for the occasion. I honestly wanted to be light and funny, but these are serious times. The world is troubled, and that's not boilerplate commencement talk. Things feel different, to me at least. The scope and scale of our problems seem greater today, and the most daunting of these problems more daunting, certainly than at any time in my life. Whatever side of the political divide you're on, the challenges posed by climate change, racism, income inequality, international peace and stability, and more are huge. And they require a seriousness of purpose and a willingness to take action that the world's current leadership is apparently unable to muster. My generation owes yours an apology. We made a horrible mess of things, and we're still not doing much to help. So you must do better. This is not a time for cynicism. You do not have the option to just check out. But neither is it the time for an unrealistic idealism that insists there is only one right way, which is my way, so surrender. As history has taught us over and over, that kind of self-righteous certainty will only lead to cynicism when it is disappointed, as it inevitably will be. And from there, it leads to violence. Now is a time for idealism tempered by pragmatism, for high-minded ideals about what should be done, combined with patience and a willingness to work through the messy realities needed for actual progress. One of my favorite sayings, something I learned only after I became responsible for running an organization, is being right is never enough. It's never enough because other people who disagree will be equally sure that they are right. You must work with and persuade and even learn from them. You must take such victories as you can find along the way. You must care about accomplishing something and making progress more than you care about beating the other side or proving that you are right. If history teaches us anything, it's that great challenges can bring great opportunities, which means you leave here with opportunities to make a difference that are rare. So rise to the challenge. Be ambitious, take chances, and do something that makes the world a better, safer place. The surveys I read about millennials said one other thing, and this was in all of them. They said that people of your generation want more out of their careers and lives than personal or financial success. You want to live lives that feel meaningful and have social value. I hope that one is true. I hope it's true for your whole generation. And I wish you luck in finding it. The opportunities are there and the world needs your help. So again, I offer you congratulations on completing this chapter and wish you luck and success in the next one.